Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Hello, Judge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead with your what you going to say.
Okay, this Byron Allen thing is another example of white folk fronting off a Negro trying to pimp something that was meant for us. See, here's the deal. Comcast is not attacking the 66 Act, which actually is rather redundantly obsolete because it was passed before the 14th Amendment. So what it really set out to do was done better by the 14th Amendment, which was passed or ratified the following year in 1867. The purpose of the act that survived was to ensure that the former slaves could be employed and could legally enforce employment contracts. In other words, you couldn't say the Negro could not go into court and enforce me to pay what I agree to pay him. That's what it was about. That's the historic basis. Everything that is of salient value to black folk has been repeated in later laws over the last 154 years. So occasionally somebody smart in a local area tries to bring that up, sometimes with or without success, to say somebody's been discriminated against. But the real issue is this. It's CBS has a contract with Fox that prohibits them going directly through any other cable channel that they do not own without going through Fox first. So that costs money, right? And for the millennials and Generation X, guess what? CBS going through Fox is politically incorrect. So what they want is for Byron Allen to get a Comcast channel. Comcast is saying we already have plenty of black content, and you showing 6 lame reruns over and over is not going to get it. It's not going to do anything but lose money or be marginally profitable. Now, for Allen to prove that he has a case, if it is tried upon the merits, he has to prove that more likely than not, Comcast is in fact going to make money off of him, that it's not a business decision, and that it's based on race. The allegation that was subject to the case being dismissed was that Allen could not show these things based on the circumstances, so it should be dismissed outright. All the Ninth Circuit did was, we agree there needs to be more evidence taken in this case, and if the evidence merits it, then it should go to trial on the merits. We are not ruling on the merits because there is no trial. We're just ruling on the technical issue of whether the case should be thrown out or not. Now, as to the allegation that Allen is making on behalf of CBS is that Comcast is racist, but Comcast carries OWN, and that was started by Oprah. It carries Bounce TV, and Bounce TV, if I'm not mistaken, was founded by Ambassador Andrew Young and Martin Luther King III. So you got a family feud situation going on here because the King daughter that's down there preaching against it and siding with Byron Allen against Comcast got cut out. The King family's got a feud going on apparently. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't have any action, so she wants some. Like if you call, like say you're trying to reach Dexter, you know what happens when you try to call. They won't hook you up. You got to talk money first, and then they want to delay so you can't get to anybody. Have you ever tried contacting them?
Oh, well, Dick tried to put me in touch with MLK the Third, whatever. He made a personal introduction, but it didn't work out, whatever, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I know. It's difficult. See, so they've got this family situation, egos, and everything else. I don't even want to get into that. It's a shame that an icon family is in that kind of situation, but, that's family life.
Right.
Okay. So what essentially is happening is Fox is, they always demand their cut. And Fox actually is the network that has more black content than any other, but, PC-wise, it's supposed to be an anathema because it is mega. And Fox has more black on-air personalities than any of the rest of them combined. So it's kind of, we get caught up in mythology. Like, what are you trying to do? Feel good? You go along with the mythology and you start attacking it. No, the 1866 Act is not being attacked by the Justice Department. The claim is it just doesn't apply. And I can see their point. The other thing is look, this was never intended for black folk to front off for white folk. You take probably the most racist entity in Hollywood, and that's CBS, which has no black executives. And it has no black content. Hell, I was the only black content outside of Oprah. And Arsenio came back, but he quit in disgust, saying they haven't changed in 20 years. They're still same old racist clowns. So what are you getting out of this? Oh, he's sitting there and they're attacking civil rights. That's not what they're doing. They just said under the circumstances, this doesn't apply. And we just jumped into it. Now, my personal thing with Byron Allen, since people are so concerned about it, is this. When I quit CBS, they put out that I got a cutback on my pay because the ratings dropped. Well, so did Judy's, so did Oprah's, so did Phil's, because they changed over from predominantly broadcast/cable, direct TV coming in, to all kinds of alternative media. Everybody's ratings dropped. But I was still the number 2 syndicated show in the country. And I was beating Oprah every week and Phil every week, and I was supposed to get 40% of the unadjusted gross. And they were stealing the money, embezzling it, and I was demanding it, and essentially they wanted me to take an IOU. The other thing was that I was not going to push that LGBT agenda they wanted me to push. So what happens is we decide, me and a group I put together, we're going to come up with some alternative shows. So we're down at NAPTE, that's the National Association of Television Producers and Executives, that met up in Miami for the year in question. Well, Byron Allen, somebody noticed, man, you see him over there hanging out with these CBS executives. So what we did is we took this pretty young Cubano woman that we had working our booth, and we sent her over there looking all cutie pie, and she recorded what was going on, and Byron Allen was talking to CBS specifically about helping them jack me around. So we said, oh, is that what time it is? So he goes out of his way to approach us and says he wants to talk to us. Now, I had a contract provision with CBS that had some specific language in there that imposed a penalty on me if I attempted to do something in competition within X amount of time after we could not, come to an agreement on a new contract. And essentially, CBS wanted me to take an IOU for money they owed me. Oh, hell no. So when we listen to this, he sends me over a contract with this exact same language in it, wanting me to sign it. So, of course, I knew what's going on. It was a trap. And I said, no, we got to talk about it. So he wanted me to do a judge show, not based on real cases, but on fiction and some reenactment, so it would be scripted and fictionalized, which I said, no way. And then I said, what money are you talking about anyway? He couldn't come up with the money. So this thing about him being a billionaire is crap. CBS is fronting every dime that he's using because he doesn't have money like that available. So what happens is I told him to go bug off. I said something a little nastier, but see, he was fronting off for CBS then. So he's been trying to corner the market, he says, on black reruns like Good Times and Moving On Up and all of this. And he's presenting it as a package, saying that he deserves a channel to Comcast. And Comcast is saying, hell no, we got better rerun content right now. We've got OWN and Bounce and a lot of black original content running on various other channels that we carry where you do have black writers and directors, producers, and lots of black actors. So why should we give you a channel to carry some lame reruns that aren't going to make us any money and you want us to finance it the way you say? So that was a business decision. So he turns around and says, by the way, he sued Al Sharpton too, you know, saying that he was accusing Sharpton of the Reverend of getting all of the black money so the Comcast did not have to deal with him. And that was supposed to be racial discrimination. So you got a weak idea, and what you want to do is claim the 66 Act in racial discrimination so you can force them to carry your stuff whether or not it'll be a flop or not. So right now, Bounce TV is contracted with CBS to carry my shows, which being in Memphis, you can see them every morning, 2 hours, 8, 9, and 10, or something like that, 9, 10, and 11. And that's 5 days a week. Now, I got a little problem. Bounce TV pays residuals to CBS, and CBS is 2 years behind in distribution. That Bounce is current on paying them. So what they wanted to do was get my show from Bounce and give it to Byron Allen so they could generate a little income off of the whole thing, clamp down on me because I'm still being contrary and I'm exposing their perfidy, and they don't like it. So on my show, there was one executive, the first one they had, they even acknowledged he embezzled $25 million. But in violation of the federal law, FTC, they declined to report that to the board of directors and to the stockholders, which is a federal crime. Somebody could get 10 years. They also frequently engaged in insider trading, which I got a hold of their behinds about and confronted them and even got admissions on that. So they don't like me. And they've been blackballing me for a long time. Every time somebody says we're going with the show, they jump up with CBS and you bet not, we don't give you permission. So see, CBS had a contract with Fox to supply me to them, and they had 2 more years on the contract, so they were trying to come up with this gay guy out of Detroit that they wanted to substitute, and Gloria Feinstein's daughter, who looked like a hippie from 1960 with long crinkly hair, conditioned, ungroomed, and wearing a ankle-length granny dress. So if it didn't work, Fox said, drop dead, go to hell. We want Judge Brown, and you owe us some money because you can't deliver him. So they're still angry. But you see, that's the background on that. And I know it because all this stuff came up in things where I'm negotiating with, not Fox, with CBS, because I'm getting 40% of the unadjusted gross, and what's supposed to happen is they got to account to me with where it comes from, so part of this stuff is they couldn't get some on cable directly because of the contract they had with Fox, and they're throwing this at me as a defense to me claiming fraud. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but I had hired a lawyer who had represented me before, always won, and every time he sued CBS/Paramount, he won. But for some reason, in the middle of everything, he disappeared. His office couldn't find him, his family couldn't find him, and nobody's seen him for 3.5 years.
Wow.
He also used to represent some high corporate officials in CBS, to wit, Leslie Moonves. So just go figure that. So that case got blown, so they escaped the consequences of that because my lawyers disappeared.
Wow.
And I didn't know it, and his law office was trying to find it.
Do you think it was some foul play, or you think it's something else going on with that?
I have no idea. You know, you're a big-time Hollywood lawyer dealing with entertainment law. Every time you slap CBS down, you slap them down. Every time you slap Paramount down, you slap them down real good, and all of a sudden you turn up, disappear, and nobody knows where you are.
Wow.
This guy's been missing in action for 3 years. AWOL for 3 years.
You don't think because it could be intimidation?
I don't know. He never felt intimidated before.
Wow.
So he's been it's not even 4. It's 5 years he's been AWOL.
And his family and nobody
has seen him. Brother hasn't seen him. You know, parents have, uncles, nobody has seen him.
What is his name?
Larry Stein.
Interesting. Wow. You drop a lot of information on the people right now. How you feel about, it's like the 1866 Civil Rights Act really has no bite. It's more bark. It has no bite. It can't really be enforced. It's weak.
Yeah, let me see if I can get into this. Okay. The Civil Rights Act of 1806 is basically the first law enacted by the U.S. government that clearly defined what U.S. citizenship was. Mm-hmm. It also set forth the principle officially for the first time that all citizens are equally protected under law. Mm-hmm. It was not a comprehensive step, but it was a beginning, a small step toward social and political equality for black folk. Now, it failed to protect black folk for political or social rights like voting and equal accommodations. It's been cited from time to time in Supreme Court cases dealing with discrimination, but not as the principal authority. It's just cited, Act of so-and-so and so-and-so, Civil Rights Act of 1964 is amended, 1968, Equal Accommodations Act, so on and so forth. And then they'll have down the list Civil Rights Act of 1866. Now, it's no longer really a firm law. These are the principles that it sets forth that are still important. It establishes that all persons born in the United States are citizens of the country. It specifically defines the rights of U.S. citizenship, and it makes it illegal to deny any person those rights of citizenship on the basis of their race or color. Mm-hmm. It says that all persons born in the United States, excepting American Indians, are declared to be citizens of the United States, and that citizens of every race and color shall have the same right as enjoyed by white citizens. Now, in 1866, they went further. 1868, rather, they went further with the 14th Amendment that had been passed down to the states in 1867 for ratification. Now, the 14th Amendment, as everybody knows, addresses citizenship and guarantees all citizens equal protection under the law. That's where you get that term, equal protection. Now, there had been an 1857 Supreme Court case known as Dred Scott versus Sanford. Dred Scott case that helped kick off the Civil War, and it reversed it. It held that because of their foreign ancestry, native-born free African Americans were not U.S. citizens, and thus had no rights to sue in American courts. Now, the act overrode that. It also tried to deal with these black codes enacted by the southern states, which restricted the freedom of African Americans or black folk and allowed such things as convict leasing, where you could lease out a Negro. So it was passed in 1865. It was initially vetoed by President Andrew Johnson from Tennessee. It was passed again. It was reframed as a measure to support the 13th Amendment, which banned slavery. And Johnson vetoed it again, but the two-thirds majority of the House and the Senate overrode the veto. So it became law, April 9th, I think, 1866. Now, Johnson made a big deal of saying he objected to the scope of enforcement suggested by the legislation and supported state rights. He called the act, I think the quote is, another step or a stride towards centralization in the concentration of all legislative power in the national government. That was his position, states' rights activist type stuff. Now, one of the things is, although the act guaranteed that all people, regardless of race or color, had protection of their civil rights, such as rights to participate or initiate or defend in a lawsuit, to make and enforce contracts, and to buy, sell, and inherit real and personal property. It did not protect political rights, like voting or running for or holding public office, nor did it protect social rights, in other words, ensuring equal access to public accommodations. But the main thing that they're trying to rely upon here is the 66 Act articulated the right to make and enforce contracts, and that's what they're trying to proceed upon under this thing now that all of us are making such a big deal about. We're just getting pimped. All right? So this thing that these things they left out were intentional. They did not want black folk to have all of these rights, social rights. You could come in any place, sit down, and eat. They didn't want that. They just wanted to be the civil rights where you could go in and file an action, hold the office, and vote.
Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
Okay, now there was an act, the Enforcement Act of 1875.
Mm-hmm.
So Congress attempted to correct the shortcomings of the 66 Act with the passage of the Civil Rights of Act in 1875. That's called the Enforcement Act in popular parlance. That act guarantees all citizens, including black folk, equal access to public accommodations and public transportation, and prohibited our exclusion from jury duty. Now, within the decade, the Supreme Court ruled in the civil rights cases of 1883 that public accommodation sections of the Civil Rights Act of 1875 were unconstitutional, declaring that the 13th and 14th Amendments did not give Congress the power to regulate the affairs of private individuals and businesses. Blacks, though we are now free, we continue to face all of this racist discrimination in almost every aspect of our social, economic, and political interaction. In 1896, you get the U.S. Supreme Court with Plessy versus Ferguson declaring that racially separate accommodations were legal so long as they were equal in quality, and that states had the power to enact regulations and laws that mandated racial segregations in accommodations. So the legislative and executive branches avoided having to deal with civil rights for almost 100 or so years after the Plessy case. That left black folk, to deal with all of this Jim Crow nonsense, and separate but equal that got reversed with Brown v. Board of Education that Thurgood Marshall, honchoed back through the Supreme Court in 1954. So you saw all of this interaction with the Klan, the White Knights, the cross, and everything else. And the act that made, the 66 Act that made it illegal to discriminate in employment and housing, failed to provide any federal sanctions. So it was up to the victims to seek civil relief, file a lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back then, 145 years ago, 150 years ago, we weren't able to access lawyers, courts, or anything else. So it was just an empty act. Now, that's where the 1866 thing is. It's an empty thing. It's an empty shell that meant well, and it's been superseded or in parts where it was really helpful, incorporated into other laws. Now, what you have since is that since the late 40s, 1950s, you have more effective civil rights legislation that is allowed for more remedies coming out of Supreme Court decisions and rulings based on the original Civil Rights Act of 1866. But you have to understand the Supreme Court threw its own stuff out with Plessy versus Ferguson. So you've got Jones v. Mayer, Sullivan versus Little Hunting Park, etc. decisions in 1968. You've got key elements of the Great Society program of Lyndon Johnson, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act, the Voting Rights Act of 65, and the Civil Rights Acts that was civil rights legislation that came from those. All of these incorporated provisions of the 1866 and 1875 Civil Rights Act. So don't care what the hell happens with Byron, Allen, and Comcast, we're not losing these things that have been incorporated in the last 154 years.
Also, I got to ask you this as well. I hope you can hear me. The ADOS movement, the founders of the ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves movement, Yvette Carnell and Antonio Tone Talks More, they seem to have a pretty close relationship with Byron Allen and use their very influential platform to promote this case and to promote Byron Allen. So do you think that they're going to take a hit in terms of their, people's perception of the movement? The movement hasn't been tainted.
Let me say this about the movement.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate African descendants of slavery as a concept. It explains in a nutshell what's wrong with being so proud of Barack Obama. He is not an American descendant of slavery. He has no ancestors that were slaves in America or who personally went through any Jim Crow, separate but equal Reconstruction nonsense. None. So he would not be entitled to reparations. So that's why we don't need to stick our checks out talking about we had our first black president. We didn't. We still haven't had that. So I appreciate the concept. But the problem with ADOS is that it has been subverted by some crank nonsense. You have people that are talking about we are the people that originally occupied North America, not the Native Americans. That's false. They're not American Indians. It's us. We came over from Africa. The pyramids were constructed 250,000 years ago, and the aliens did it because no man with those primitive means could construct a pyramid. Yes, you can. If you're a Mason, you learn about it when you start getting to the higher levels, if you pay attention on how to make a pyramid like they did. Masons made it, and they still have Masonic organizations. So, they've got all kinds of nonsense that they push, mythology, and one of the worst is we need to get land and we need to separate ourselves, and it's like, well, archaeological evidence strongly suggests that at least 50 to 70,000 years ago, human beings were engaged in widespread commerce and trade amongst themselves on the close and far range. So what the hell, in this world where everybody is tied in with technology and dependence for resources, you want to isolate yourself? What the hell's wrong with you? Where do you get your ideas about economics? From land, yeah, but what are you going to do with it? You have to have a market. You have to have supplies. You have to have all kinds of stuff, distribution networks. You have to have finance and capital to get it together. Maybe what we need to do is what everybody else does these days. They are deep into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and they invent something, some new process, some dot-com revolution arises. You get Silicon Valley, and you get people becoming multi-billionaires because they are able to deal with new technologies. We don't do that. We get to dealing with stuff that we don't even pay attention to because we're too busy playing bid whisk or chasing after nookie someplace or getting high now. Or having no balls, and even if you got the skills, not having anything to do with it because you don't have the nerve to do anything with it. You know, see, that's us. We don't know economics, but you go down to Jamaica or Bahamas or anywhere else in the Caribbean, hey, man, I got to get to bed, man. I got to open my shop, man. It's 7 a.m. on Queen Elizabeth Highway, man. Hey, man, you only got one job, man. What's the matter? You get disability check, man, from government? Everybody got 2 jobs, man. See, and we don't get it. You get anybody coming into this economy, Mexican, Indian, from India, Pakistan, China, Japan, the Philippines, Indonesia. They can be president if they come in from Indonesia, and we can't even get one, somebody up in there. Come from Russia, and they can make a fortune because they understand how this system works. See, ADOS has a bad thing about, well, we can't be expected because there's racism, you know, white supremacy. Damn that shit. We used to have lions, tigers, grizzly bears, wolves, hyenas, leopards, cheetahs, cougars, panthers, alligators, crocodiles, hippos, and everything romping, stomping, eating us up, tearing us up, but we prevail. That's adversity. This is just background adversity. Yes, these are factors. Yes, if you were a human at any time on this planet Earth in our past, you would have dealt with adversity. We can deal with this. We need to stop being paralyzed by it. Reparations. Yeah, we can get reparations, but the truth of the matter is we don't know anything about STEM to know what we can do for setting up a business, a new enterprise, trade, setting up factories, dealing with economics and finance. We don't know these things. So what are we going to do about it? You get $400,000 and the ADOS crowd is all, oh my God, it's a great amount of money. And then if you remember exchange I had on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I was exchanging with people. It was like if a sister's making $100,000 and her man is making $40,000, she needs to upgrade because he's holding her back. And then got all that stuff. Brother making $40K, that's a lot of money, man. If he want to stay at home and, help his woman get her career together by taking care of the kids, man, ain't nothing wrong with that. There's a lot wrong with that. That's being a gigolo and a useless drone. But that's how we think these days. So, they think $40,000. $40,000 is a lot of money. Oh, hell, man, you're on the poverty level for $40,000. Middle class in America is $240,000 for a family of husband, wife, and 2 kids. That's $100,000 apiece, $120,000 apiece. So you got a long way to go to even get middle class. And you looking at $40,000, which is officially declared to be on the poverty level. And you looking at that as big change. And then, oh man, $400,000, man, that'd be good. But see, the problem with $400,000 is, with 64 million identified black folk in America, that only works out at about $14 to $15 trillion in the entire income for the United States of America from all sources for 2017 wasn't but $19.2 trillion. So in other words, out of $19.2 trillion, you'd be leaving $4.2 trillion. Can't make it. So do you really expect the country to bankrupt itself for us? And is it a realistic expectation to take these racists who've been jacking us around for all of these couple of 100, 300 years to all of a sudden turn around and get a conscience and give us some money? They gave the Japanese reparations, but that was $23,000, $24,000 apiece. And they had lists of everybody that was locked up in these internment camps to pay out to. We don't. And does Obama get money? Hell no. He is not ADOS, ADOS. So, see, you got to deal with it. What about the ones that are white boys looking like white, but it is passed for white, but they have as much black ancestry in them as anybody else. They just have a different paint job. What about them? How do you determine? You take a DNA test? Well, if you're in the military, they did it, but the rest of them go, man, it's the thing, man. You can't take no genocide test, man. I mean, yeah, man, see, it's genocide, man. It ain't DNA. They trying to do it so they can conduct DNA experiments on us and wipe us out with some new kind of biological something based on DNA. Oh, man, come on. Get over it.
Man, it's really like, wow.
So ADOS has become victim of his own mythology trying to do right, and it's also doing something that is very bad. It's just like the Nazis trying to invent the Aryan Superman that all Nazis and Germans are supposed to have descended from. Well, there are Aryans, but you know what they look like? Kamala Harris is your archetypical Aryan. They're paper bag brown with long, coarse, dark hair. And she is a Hindu Brahmin caste. Those are the Aryans. So the Nazis are making them blonde-haired, blue-eyed, far north Superman giants, and actually they come from India and they're swarthy, just like Kamala Harris.
You saying that, I was thinking about 100 years ago. We had Marcus Garvey, who was not from America. He's from Jamaica. He's probably our greatest black mass leader we ever had in this country. And he was talking about going back to Africa, but he never been to Africa in his life. He never went to Africa, but he was telling people, black folks, we need to go back to Africa. And he had this idea about being the president of Africa, but you have countries in Africa. It's a continent with countries. So, we can't, it's weird. I think we want to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. We do want to do something that's going to help each other out, but we don't understand how to do that in this system.
That's exactly right. You know what Africans say? You get candid with them, they say, we need black Americans to show us how to fit into a modern society. You people don't know enough about yourself or your society to help. Because we have rich people in Africa, but they're crooks. They get graft and they extort people, shoot people, torture people, everything else is not spreading around. You guys talk about kings and queens, but you miss the point that you got one king, one queen, and everybody else is an abject subject with no free will because they get jacked if they get out of line. Is that what you really want to be? Everybody in the world is getting into some kind of democratic or representative process, whether it is communism or it is so-called democracy, socialism or capitalism. So you really want to be kings and queens where, you can't have kings and queens. You only got one. And what's the favorite thing, ADOS? Kings and queens, king? No, if I'm king, there ain't nobody else but me.
Oh, with the ADOS, I think it's different because, I remember when it first started, Yvette Carnell was trying to dismiss that notion of kings and queens. She's talking about workers, peasants. We saying from the people that were enslaved, the sharecroppers. So she was actually with you on there to dismiss the idea of us being all kings and queens.
Yeah, but see, I'm not a peasant because I'm educated. I got a doctorate degree. I read all the time. I took physics. I took political science. I know how to shoot. I shoot well. I've taken martial arts for more than 50 years. I can kick a whole lot of ass. I am no goddamn peasant. You see, so I don't think of myself as a peasant. My grandfather, one of them was a physician, but he and his brother had to escape from Louisiana for murdering 2 deputy sheriffs who participated in a lynching of one of their other brothers. I don't buy that shit. I had another ancestor, a great-grandfather, cut his master's head off and took an axe and tied up the man's wife and cut both of her hands off because she had laid them upon him, and he escaped the cannon until after the Civil War. Got another one he wasn't a slave, and another one escaped. 10 years before the Civil War, great-grandfather. So I didn't need that shit. See, I don't think of myself as a damn peasant, and nobody else needs to. We need to think of ourselves as full-fledged humans and stop thinking ourselves as damn dogs that escape and get to play feral dog instead of being a wolf. See, wolves can feed themselves. Dogs require masters to break open the kibbles and bits. And that's what we think like. We're always asking for a damn handout. If you got to ask, you don't need it. You got to be able to take it or earn it.
I remember we've been like we are domesticated, and that's the thing about if people are depending on us to be the leaders of the black diaspora. We've been so domesticated. We're close to master. You know what I'm saying? So, like what Malcolm X said, we sick boss. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well,
that's most of our mentality. If you're honest with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Let's talk about Queen Elizabeth of England, the current occupant of the throne. Her ancestor that took the throne was William the Conqueror, formerly known as William the Bastard, Duke of Normandy. And then he became William I, King of England. Well, to secure his new kingdom, he had his troops set on a village and seized 10 able-bodied men out of the village, and he made Willie's worms. What he did is he had their eyes plucked out, hot irons driven into their ears so they couldn't hear, their tongues ripped out, both arms amputated, both legs amputated, so blind, dumb, and deaf, they would wiggle through the mud and dirt, and the villagers would have to feed them until they died and be reminded of his power. And he deliberately starved by famine that he created on purpose by burning crops. Archaeologically, between 120 and 250,000 of his new subjects, so he wouldn't have to put up with them. Now, his direct descendant, is on the throne. One of her other ancestors was King Edward I. His son, King Edward II, turned out to be gay. So they deposed him after the Earl of Warwick fathered the son on his wife, the Queen, because he didn't want it. He wanted something else besides booty, or at least that kind. So once they got an heir, they deposed him. They locked him in a tower. They stuck a brass funnel up his anus and took a poker, cut the barbs off, heated it red hot, and fried him from the inside out. Took about 5 hours, and they said they could hear his screams 2 miles away.
Wow.
They thought it was funny, considering his proclivities. So that's another direct ancestor of the current queen. You see how these white folk do? There is the longest-running lawsuit in Anglo-Saxon jurisprudence is still running. Every time a new chancellor takes the bench, he calls the case, takes it under advisement, and then waits until somebody replaces him. The last time was but 5 or 6 years ago. It goes all the way back to 1524 or somewhere thereabouts. What happened is the owner or the holder of the land that now includes Liverpool was out hunting. He got seized by one of his rivals. They stripped him naked, tied him to a spit, and slow roasted him for 3 days, liberally barbecuing him. Coating him with barbecue sauce so he wouldn't burn, crisp. And then after 3 days and him agreeing to sign the deed over, they slit his throats to give him a quick death. So the lawsuit is about the descendants of the people who originally held the property suing the ones whose ancestor slow roasted their ancestor to get control of it. And you see over there, they don't necessarily pay taxes. Sometimes they pay rentals. So all of the rentals go to this family, and they pay a big tithe to the queen, so she lets them continue to hold it. So, that's the reality of how these white folk work.
So we're going to get reparations for these type of people.
Yeah, you're going to get all bad ass with this. Years ago, there was a guy that owned a gun shop. Bert here, right in Memphis. Dead now. Owned guns and ammo down there on Summer. Well, he was an interesting white guy. In his will, he requested that Reverend Bill Atkins, who's not a bad black preacher, he wanted him to conduct the services. He did. And he and Bill used to go hunting together, and he was, he didn't have any problems with black folk if you acted like a man. And he told me one time, he said, Joe, damn, He said, my folk are scared as hell that your folk going to rise up in the middle of the night, slit their throats. He said, you know, there's some good reason to fear that kind of thing. And they're buying every round and case of ammunition they can find and every damn gun they can afford to buy. Y'all folk need, if I was a black man, I'd be spending a lot of money on ammunition and guns just in case my people got crazy one day. Now, we have black leaders that are anti-gun. They want to confiscate them. What the hell's going on? See, white folk will give me liberty or give me death. Better dead than red. I regret that I have but one life to give, and go deal with it. They'll play Timothy McVeigh and blow something up. They'll go shoot up a schoolyard in a minute or a hallway somewhere. What do? We just do a drive-by on our own folk where it don't count. They will on their own folk at a drop of a hat, too. Agree, the town ain't big enough for the both of us. Please here on Main Street at high noon. You better slip letter ball, 'cause I sure is. Is that
but our conditioning, like even you look at the recent Harriet movie where she actually, you know, let her slave master or owner get off, don't even kill him. You know, she just let him go, and it's like, oh no, God don't like ugly. Like we got this Christianity mindset of forgiveness at all costs. You know, even in the Amber Geiger case where the brother and the judge hugged the woman.
Ain't that pathetic? By the way, really, you know how the white folk give Christianity? One of William the Conqueror's uncles. You know what he did?
What he did?
He was besieging a town in France, and some of his allies inside the town threw open a small gate so they could infiltrate the place, open the fortress gates, storm the fortress, and take everybody prisoner. There were 10,000 people they took into custody. They said, my Lord, what shall we do? He said, kill them all. He said, but Lord, some of them are your supporters. He says, it matters not, kill them all and let the Lord sort out the innocent and the guilty. That's the way they take Christianity. How do we take it? Turn the other cheek. And let's do it this way. See, you know what else is behind that movie that nobody wants to talk about? Is that it's part of a feminist movement to get a female on some bill of American currency. They don't care whether it's black, brown, red, yellow. They want to open the door. So they're trying to seize upon it and insult the black race by saying the first person to be honored black by getting on a bill is supposed to be somebody that saved 240 slow slaves. What about Thurgood Marshall? What about Frederick Douglass? What about, well, if they had a picture of him, I don't think they do, Nat Turner. I don't think they'd put Nat Turner on a bill, but what about the other two? Are you Martin
Christmas addicts, right?
Yeah, or Martin Luther King, or Christmas addicts. And see, we talk about, yeah, man, how about some dead presidents, man, if you want to go in there. Everybody on a dollar bill isn't a dead president. How about Ben Franklin? Because president. But you see, the status of a race is determined by the status of its males, not its females. Because down races always have had exotically appealing females that the master race is always wanting to exploit and enjoy. So when you put that on, that's somebody to screw. Not literally, but it's somebody that's a sex object. It's not somebody that might take your head off or do some real consequence to you. You know, I was discussing something on my show with Umar Johnson last week, and he was talking
about... I thoroughly enjoyed that, yeah.
Yeah, talking about I'm a chauvinist. I said, yeah, damn straight I'm a chauvinist. I'm not following any woman. Oh, that's bull. I'll hire one to be a lawyer, doctor, you know, dentist or whatever, but I am not following any woman when the stuff hits the fan. Oh, no, it's either going to be me or somebody I support. I'm going to say, follow me. I'm like, yeah, you better bring your ass back here.
Well, you know, I think Dr. Umar, you know, I think he lost that round with you, Judge. You was consistent. You stood your ground. You said what you had to say, getting back down. So I got to respect that. I think the argument could have been stronger for Harriet. There's some things he could have said that could have made a stronger argument for Harriet being that woman on that bill, because she was tough, but she believed in black men too. She loved black men. She followed black men. You know, she loved them. So,
white boys are on every currency. We don't have a white woman. And I'll be damned if we need to put a black woman on before you put a black man on a dollar bill.
But they did have a Susan B. Anthony coin back in the day, right? She had a $1/2 or something like that back in the day.
Yeah.
Not that long ago.
See, it also depends on the culture. You go to Tahiti, it's French, all right? Mm-hmm. And every bill, every coin has two heads on it. Both of them are female. And it's interesting, one of the females on one side is fair skin and one's dark skin. One looks like something out of the Fiji Islands, and one of them looks like somebody Polynesian or Polynesian in white. So that's their custom. They have women on the bills. England, on pound notes, puts whoever the monarch is, which may be male or female. Okay, fine. But in America, the tradition is to put a man on the bill. So I'll be damned if we are supposed to have all of the black men who are supposed to protect, provide for, and advance the race. We get dissed and you put a black woman. Like, Negroes, you ain't shit because your men ain't worth a damn. We'll put one of your women on. By the way, that used to be one of the mechanisms of slavery, which makes it doubly insulting. Never deal with a black man, always deal with the gray-haired black women.
I mean, you make some interesting points, Judge, and people got to do their research and homework. But some people will argue with you that there is a black man on a bill, American currency. His name is Alexander Hamilton. He's on a $10 bill. He's actually mixed heritage.
Yeah,
from the islands. They got to play about Mr. Hamilton. He's not a president.
They got it slightly wrong. You know what Hamilton's ethnicity was?
What?
He was Jewish.
He was a banker, so it makes sense. I'm not being.
He was Jewish. He went to a Jewish school, and what happens is they did not have any college in the Caribbean, so they took up a subscription to send him to Harvard, which was a nascent college developing in the American colonies. And he was a smart Jewish guy. That's why Hamilton had that. So they kind of got it confused. It does not behoove, some people remaining politically correct to have a Jewish person on an American bill of currency. You got what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it's something that people need to look into. I know if you go by portraits, though, he got different versions of Hamilton. You don't know what to believe with these portraits.
And see, the other thing, too, is that's the same Kamala Harris. I'm black because my daddy is from Jamaica. Well, daddy is an engineer, and he wrote an article himself in the Jamaican periodical. We went over that. He said, we're not black. We're Hindu and white and Brahmin. And your mama is a Brahmin, and I'm part Brahmin, and all of my ancestors are descendants of white plantation owners. There is one great-grandmother or something it's got some small percentage of black in her. But over here, we don't call that black.
Wow.
So how are you going around calling yourself black? You're just a Hindu Brahmin girl.
And I mean, you said that, I'm thinking about Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Why not put him on some money? Because, I mean,
why
he
not?
chose to be black. You know what I'm saying? He was passed for white at one point when he was going to school, but he said, I'm going to be black. You know what I'm saying? He did a lot of things for black people. And
how
for the country.
How about General Colin Powell, Secretary of State, first black Secretary of State, one time
why not?
Trusted person in the American government.
But he's still alive, though, Judge. You can't put nobody alive on.
Well, right? Look at the tradition in the U.S. Navy. You never name a ship after a live person. The Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier, the John B. Stennis aircraft carrier, the Jimmy Carter super nuclear submarine, the George Herbert Walker Bush nuclear aircraft carrier. They named this after all these people. They were still breathing air.
Right.
So what's the difference?
Good point. Point well taken. I mean, there's always exceptions to the rule.
Yeah. Well, we don't need Colin Powell, but if you want to take somebody who's been dead 100 years, you damn sure have Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, he got a lot of good portraits and photos to choose from to make an engraving. I mean, I don't think we really understand the genius or the importance of a Frederick Douglass. We're not taught that in schools. You don't see too many movies about Frederick Douglass. And even in the movies he's in, they cast him wrong. They got him like, he's real tall and skinny, slight build. This guy used to work on ships and stuff and work on the field. He wasn't no small dude. He was, muscular guy. Very imposing guy. Very confident guy. So you depend on Hollywood to make these movies about our people. We're always going to be disappointed. The biopics are always disappointing.
How about the movie they had about Thurgood Marshall when they had that gay boy that's,
Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther.
Yeah, that played Panther and played Jackie Robinson,
James Brown.
Yeah. You know what they're doing? They're associating in the popular mind gayness with these kind of people. And they have the same one, so you identify him as Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall, the actor that could have played him, is what's the brother with the mustache that plays the head of the house in Empire?
Oh, Terrence Howard, yeah.
Yeah, he would have been ideal Thurgood Marshall. It looks like, by the way, Thurgood Marshall, they alluded to in the movie, was a badass. He used to take a baseball bat and go up against somebody's head and was known to carry a .38.
I mean, I think with Chadwick Boseman, he didn't want to accept the part at first, but I think with Thurgood Marshall, one of his sons or whatnot, wrote a letter saying he should take the part. He really initially turned it down, from what I heard from him.
Yeah, well,
he was encouraged by Thurgood's son.
It should have been that guy on Empire. He looks about the right age for the time.
Well, Terrence Howard, though, he don't have the voice, though. He don't have the gravitas, the voice. His voice is kind of shaky to me. Like,
neither did this guy. They could have had somebody do the voice. They have.
Yeah, you do this Hollywood. But, the movie wasn't bad. The story, the synopsis, it wasn't a bad movie, though. I was surprised by it. It was actually pretty good for what it was.
Well, it wasn't bad, but what it does is it stereotypes the black folk that do it. And there's a color problem amongst black folk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, colorism is real, yeah.
So they were reinforcing the stereotypes. Like, I have an interesting connection to one movie. Remember Lady Sings the Blues about...
Oh, yeah. Billie Holiday, Diana Ross.
Yeah. Well, my Aunt Bertha was Billie Holiday's roommate for 11 years. And Aunt Bertha was about as black as it gets. She wound up with a Ph.D., retired as head dietitian at Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, and died at 97 years old with 6 books she wrote.
Wow.
She was Billie Holiday's roommate, but she used to get mad. She said Diana Ross didn't look anything like Billie Holiday.
Yeah, she did.
Look like her either. You know who she wanted to play Billie Holiday at the time?
Lena Horne?
No. Lena Horne was dead.
Okay.
Or close to it. She wanted Frida Payne to play Billie Holiday.
Okay, I can see Frida Payne.
Yeah.
Yeah. You dated her at one point, Judge, right? Was it
we are still good friends. We dated on and off for about 8 years.
I can see Frida Payne pulling that off. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's who she said should have played the part, not Diana Ross. Diana Ross can sing. But they also said they made a big deal about that drug thing. My aunt said, Billie Holiday sampled, but she wasn't a junkie. She got set up.
Yeah, the way she died was
trying to gain control of her financial circumstances.
I could believe that that's possible because the way she died was very undignified. They had her handcuffed to her bed, supposedly. And she was 44 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So, but we don't know our history like that. I've seen Lady Sings the Blues. It's very entertaining, but it's not educational about the life of Billie Holiday, like you said. So you got to really do research. It's like with the Harriet movie, it does Harriet Tubman injustice if you just let that movie be the final say on her story, that Harriet movie that came out this year, because even with Dr. Umar, he could have made a better case for Harriet being on the $20 bill because she was a Civil War veteran. She was a spy scout, and, she did a lot of things. And about her freeing people, I could say this. They said the Battle of Combahee Ferry, that she was responsible for freeing over 700 black people from bondage. She led troops to battle during the Civil War. It don't make a difference how many numbers of people that said she freed. She inspired people to become free. You don't know how many people she inspired or how many people that she helped free to end up freeing other people. So that
I'm not
really
taking anything away from her, but priorities, you don't put a woman over all black men to be on the bill. White folks didn't do it.
Well, that dude seems to be empty on the corner, but what I'm saying is you could make a better case for Harriet. Like, you know, when she had brain surgery, she had head surgery, right? She didn't want no anesthesia. She just took a bullet. She chewed on a bullet for brain surgery. He said that she saw the soldiers in the field do that for brain surgery. This woman was no pushover. She was tough. She was no pushover. She's tough.
But you see,
and she was under 5'2". You know, so she was that tall.
Yeah, but see, Frederick Douglass swayed international opinion to put pressure on the United States.
Yes, he did. He did.
He inspired the Civil War. He organized the 54th Massachusetts. His even son got killed fighting in that one. One of his sons. You know, I mean, he did a lot. But, you know,
I agree, Judge. He should be.
We don't pay attention.
He should be on some money. I agree with you. I don't know arguments about Frederick Douglass. I mean, he's the unsung. He one of our greatest that we ever had. So, and they were good friends. Him and Harriet were great friends.
Yeah, I know.
Very close.
You gonna see? It's like what they do now is every damn time you look at a commercial that they have black men on there that aren't gay. They got either a fat black woman or a pretty black woman hugged up against a white guy.
Yeah. You right. You know, Judge, but the Byron Allen thing was like I think it's like it's a Trojan horse for something else. It's very sinister. I think you exposed it. You know, you paid a cost for exposing this information to us over years, but I believe it's some truth. I mean, I believe that if you follow the paper trail, we don't do the research. So I think it's weird. Like you said, I don't believe he's a billionaire. It's like I don't believe that Epstein was a billionaire.
He's not. The fool was too damn broke to pay what I required for me to go deal with him. You know, like I ain't got the money. See, he's always been like that. He's never come out done anything black, but he's always skating on top of the thing. You know.
And also, it's kind of misleading when he says his business is 100% black owned. His wife is white. His kids are mixed. So if he died or whatever, it's not 100% black owned.
No, it's not 100% black owned. The other thing is CBS is financing it.
Right.
See, it's important to understand that they signed a contract with Fox about some other matters. So Fox agreed to withdraw from doing what they were doing in direct competition with CBS, and CBS agreed that as far as cable and satellite were concerned, they would have to go through Fox in order to get on cable. So, you know, that's politically incorrect now with Fox's association with Mega. That's also cutting down their profit margin. So if you get Allen to get a channel from Comcast by coercing them, then what winds up happening is you get what? The opportunity, because under the contract, unless CBS directly acquired an interest at some future time, they have to go in through Fox. They couldn't just directly contract with Comcast. They have to go through somebody. So Allen is trying to get off of 5 reruns, 5 series, I think, 3 actually, set up for reruns to get a whole channel. Now, what are you going to do with just 3 shows? There's no new content. There's no opportunity for black writers, directors, producers. There is nothing you contribute to the socialization and acculturation of black folk. It's just a zero. Plus, all of the shows he's trying to lock up are already being played on Comcast. So what's the point?
And you know
having somebody black with a channel? Well, he does not have the means to do new production where black folk get a chance to get involved in producing conscientious black stuff.
At least Tyler Perry does have his studios. He has a track record, better for worse, of doing what you said that he can't do.
But see, you have to make a special case to Tyler Perry, and that is because of his orientation being so strong. He is somebody that the networks use when they need cash flow. And he gets a very low return on what he does compared to whites who are similarly situated. And see, okay, when Singleton and Lee had out these black movies in the 90s and such like, the trick is that when you went to see one of them, like for Malcolm X, every time, 9 times I went to see Malcolm X here or in other cities and go look at my probationers I ordered to go see that movie and report back to me on what they saw. Every time I checked, they had a ticket that said Beauty and the Beast, whether it was in Houston, Dallas, Chicago, or here. All right? So under the way they do stuff, that meant the money for every one of those tickets went to Walt Disney, not to Malcolm X's producers. And for purposes of box office and attendance, they base it on ticket sales. So every time the ticket that they handed somebody said Beauty and the Beast, and they said, oh, don't worry about it, you'll get in, that's just the tickets is printed in error. No, that's on purpose. See, that's how they slide around it. They don't do that with Tyler Perry because he pushes the thing. And see, the other point behind Tyler Perry is hooked up with this. What is it they're pushing right now? Trannies.
Mm-hmm.
And what did Tyler Perry agree to do? Retire Medea. Why? The retirement of Medea is a character coincides with the big push they're giving the transvestites right now. So there was no need. So he pushed their agenda by being that big, fat, stupid tranny.
And Judge, when I'm thinking about all this, you can't tell me there was not a conspiracy against Bill Cosby trying to buy a major network, because he was a content producer. He did black TV exceptionally well. Regardless of his criticism, I mean, he produced content for black people, educational, inspirational content, and he had the resources to try to buy a major network, and look what happened to him. He's in jail now.
Exactly.
Under questionable circumstances.
He had it twice. Now, let's get back to Byron Allen. Byron Allen is not setting up a studio. He's trying to set up a channel, but he has no means of production. He's just cornering reruns. That's library.
Right. Okay.
So what is he going to produce? He does not have the resources or the equipment or the studio to bring in black talent, black writers, black producers, black directors, black cameramen, and do anything. All he can do is play rerun content that's already in the can. So why should he get a channel? He's basically just a supplier of inventory. He's not a producer. OWN at least has its own production facilities. Tyler Perry was renting some facilities out down in Atlanta that they now rent out to National Public Radio, NPR. So at least these people could produce something. Allen can't produce content. All that is he's pimping the 66 Act, which, as we went over, you see, it's not what all these ADOS people think it is.
See, they're going to to me, they're going to lose credibility over this, I think, because they're too close to the situation. They're too close to the guy, Yvette and Tone. They too close to the situation, and then people I be hearing people like they talking about Russian bots. There's some ADOS bots. I'm just saying it lightly. I'm not saying that they not sincere, but I meet people all the time. They repeat the talking points of Yvette Carnell and Tone Talk on a lot of these issues, and it's kind of like they say they're not an organization, all this stuff, but it's weird. So I'm saying, Judge, you just exposed something that people need to just sit back and really look at. I had a lawyer friend of mine. When I talked about the Harriet movie, he said, Ron, they telling us not to support this movie because it's controlled by Comcast. It's produced by Comcast. It's Comcast-related content. And I responded to it. I said, I don't know too much about the situation with Byron Allen and Comcast, but this is what I do know. It sounds like a Trojan horse for something more sinister that we're not aware of right now. And what I would say today is that the whole system exploits the pain of black people for profit. The whole damn system is guilty. So it's like you pick Comcast, but look at the whole system. And the most does us.
The most racist of that system is CBS, which has the lowest black content, less black sensitivity, and the greatest proclivity to exploit blackness.
Okay.
And Comcast, it's the biggest cable operation, but look at all the black content they've got on Comcast. So he's going to add 3 or 4 rerun shows that is nothing new, that's been in the can for 50 years.
You know, Judge, it's sad to say we live in the age of information, but so many of us are misinformed and willfully ignorant that we can't see the forest for the trees. I think it's like what you're saying. It's like you're a voice in the wilderness on this. If people need to take this seriously and do their own investigations into this matter, but we're not going to win. We can't win with this. You know, November 10th marked the anniversary of Malcolm X, one of his greatest speeches of all time, a message to the grassroots that he delivered in Detroit back on November 10th, 1963.
Yeah.
He talks about how the damn Republicans are one is a wolf, one is a fox. They're both members of the canine family. One shows their teeth when they come at you. One hides their teeth when they come at you. But they're both dogs. They're both members of the canine family. So they not really different. They both pimping us. You know, he dissected the march on Washington. He called it the farce on Washington. How it was backed by the Kennedy administration and big money folks. How they selected the black leadership for that so-called march. That they didn't really have any control. They were told who that they would let speak that day, what they can say, what they can't say.
And how long
they're supposed to be our leadership, our movement.
Yeah. And the way I put it right now is a jackass will kick the shit out of you, and an elephant will stomp the shit out of you. The jackasses are the Democratic Party, and the elephants are the Republicans.
Yes, sir.
The jackass will take his feet and kick the shit out of you, and an elephant will take his feet and stomp the shit out of you.
There you go.
You know? So, get the shit stomped out of you or kicked out of you. You still jacked up. Pick your poison. But politics, we need to break black folk of being owned by the Democrats. First off, the whole purpose, by the way, of that 66 Act was to rein in the Democrats, to wit Democratic President Johnson from Tennessee in 1866. And the ones they're criticizing now are the ones that promulgated the act, for God's sake, the Republican Party.
You know what, Andrew? Go ahead, Judge. I'm sorry.
They're accusing the people that drafted and passed the damn act for being the ones trying to dismantle it, which is not the case.
We don't study. We're not students of history as a people, as a group, as citizens of America. Could you even go back to 1866? You said Andrew Johnson is Democrat from Tennessee. In 1866, it was Democrats from Tennessee that created the Ku Klux Klan. They created the Klan in Tennessee back in 1866. Nathan Bedford Forrest was a Democrat. Albert Pike was a Democrat. They were Democrats that created the Klan, the terrorist organization that denied our rights and helped usher in the Jim Crow era and all these things. Okay,
now let's take this. We had Tammy Sawyer got in the mayor's race to divide the vote so Doc couldn't get a chance to win the damn thing, right? Or she didn't get out. All right. This clown we've got in here, the white mayor, where only 19.1% of the registered voters are white. Interesting. We couldn't do that well when those statistics were for black voters, but, you know, that's another thing. And she introduced a county commission resolution allowing your boy, what's his name, Van Jones?
Van Turner.
Van Turner.
Mm-hmm.
To be exempt from the ordinary requirements so he could buy on a private acquisition the park where the Bedford Forest statue was located and the other park down on the bluff where the Jeff Davis statue was. Nominally to get rid of Bedford Forest and Jeff Davis, so that we could get rid of them because the state legislature had prohibited the city from doing it. But what he got without a bid for $2,500 per property, the hospital complex wants to buy that $2,500 purchase price property for $17 million. and he gets to keep it. And they want to buy the other one down there on the bluff for $15 million. So what time is that? $32 million for $5,000. You know something's wrong with that. The taxpayers don't get a dime.
But the thing about it,
you can damn well believe that a whole lot of people on this county commission are going to get it under the table as payoff for setting that up. And that's clear conflict of interest. He shouldn't have been allowed to buy it.
but you know that's how Memphis is like transparent corruption. Memphis
hell, put it up for bid. I'd have paid $5,000 for it. Get it to me.
I hear you. But that's like
wait a minute. And Michael Hooks, he's renting for, I think it's $116 a month, a storage facility where the current white mayor worked up a deal where the city pays him, get this, $5,000 a month to store the pieces of the statue for Nathan Bedford Forrest and Jeff Davis in his $116 a month storage facility.
Well, you know, this type of corruption makes Chicago.
And Tammy Sawyer, the mayor's candidate, is the half sister of Michael Hooks.
There you go. It's all in the family. Bloodlines matter.
Damn, you know?
Bloodlines matter.
It's really crazy.
It is, but a lot of people are not. It's like emotional. It's emotional pimping at its finest because it's all about, we took down the statues that have been there for 100-something years, and what do we get out of it? Police brutality still exists. Poverty still exists.
Yeah, this is the largest predominantly black city in America, and the taxpayers got ripped off for $30 million worth of property that was acquired for $5,000 by somebody on the county commission who had the authority to vote for that stuff.
The judge was $5,000 a piece, or just $5,000 altogether for the property?
All together, $2,500 a piece of property. So for a total of $5,000, he got control of $30 million in property.
Man, they put in eminent domain to shame, man. I never seen such pimping and hustling on such. I mean, E.H. Crump, Boss Crump is smiling from his grave, from hell, whatever he is located. No, Boss Crump is smiling.
Yeah, well, you know, it's ridiculous the things that we do fall for, are ignorant of, put up with, and no damn wonder. See, white folk will get out and get up in arms. We don't do crap.
We want to forgive our enemies and hug them and stuff, and hope they go to heaven. So, but Judge, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing people's responses about what you're saying, because this is very going against the grain, very contrarian. You like the salmon swimming upstream to lay the eggs for the next generation. You know, salmon got to swim upstream back to its place of origin to lay them eggs.
But here's the thing, a final thing on this Byron Allen Comcast thing. We're not losing anything. The act is basically 154 years old. It's dead. It's been superseded. Everything it once did is done better by other laws. It's still cited, but the bottom line is one of the precedents, not the controlling one, all right? It didn't do a lot of things. It did do some things. The 14th Amendment came along and did better what it's doing. The act is not getting attacked. It's the whether or not Allen comes under the act. And the deal is we don't gain a damn thing one way or the other. It's just another example of us getting pimped over something that was supposed to be for our benefit that's being used by other people for the benefit of the ones that were supposed to be excluded because they were doing us wrong. It's crazy. And all of those folks with ADOS that are supporting it, they're based on, like you said, what's been told to them. They're regurgitating them. Those people that are doing it, those two brothers, with due respect, ain't that smart.
So a brother and sister, Yvette and Tone?
Yeah. You know, they don't have enough life experience. They haven't paid enough dues. They don't have that much education. It's a rigorous damn education, the way I call it. They didn't get out on the front lines in anything. They just been running their ignorant mouths off, firing stuff up, and they probably got a side deal with Byron Allen to get a little play because he'll invite them in to do some kind of programming, commercials or whatever in the hell they're doing, and they get chicken change, and meanwhile CBS gets what they want to run their really racist game on us, and we get competition to undercut Bounce and OWN. Not that I'm upset about OWN, but Bounce, you know, Andrew Young and Martin Luther King III have a hell of a lot more credibility about doing black stuff than Byron Allen.
But, you know, Byron also owns the Griot, the online black media outlet, so I'm surprised. Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it progresses, the situation, especially in 2020.
Look. I had plenty of offers by white folk wanting me to front off for them, and I said, hell no, I won't deceive my people. If you want that, you do it. I could have made money, but see, he's fronting for white money. You know how they did when they came up with the civil rights stuff after the Johnson administration, not the Civil Rights Act, but the legislation that actualized the rights that were contained in those acts. What did they do? When they were talking about black employment, black contractors, they had all these Negroes fronting off for white folk, so the white folk could make the big money. They got a little chump change for fronting off for them. Right. It wasn't black enterprise. It was black folk fronting.
Well, thank you, Judge. And Judge, how can we find you? People want to have these conversations with you online. You're very engaging with your followers.
Okay. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Joe Brown TV. At Judge Joe Brown TV. I do not have a blue check, but you're hearing me talk about it right now, so that's self-authenticating.
Thank you, Judge, once again for being there. Cause I tell people all the time, go on Twitter and he'll respond back to you if you got something worthy to respond to. Judge, you get down, you're a people's champ, and so we're going to thank you for doing all this work.
Well, let me tell you something interesting. You know how it looks so hot and heavy, everybody getting down on me about what I'm saying about this A.L.L and stuff?
Right.
You know, I picked up almost 400 followers in 2 days.
Yeah, because you what you got to lose, Judge? You've been there. You've been on the front lines. You got the credibility. You got the track record. You got nothing to lose.
And you know what? You see, I came out of South Central L.A., and I'll be candid. Sometimes I have the wrong thoughts. And you know what they are?
What?
Negro, I will kick your goddamn punk ass, and you sitting up here trying to go for badge. You ain't never done shit violent in your whole damn life. You know, you're sitting up here talking shit.
Well, Judge, firing shots. Okay, Judge, thank you so much.
You know what I'm saying?
I
think like that, but, you know, sometimes I relapse. I'll confess.
You know what they say, a man got to do what a man got to do.
Now, if they don't blackball me, we have pilots starting on the first Saturday in February. It'll be called Hot Topics with Judge Joe Brown. It's only a half hour, and it's supposed to be expanded to an hour. They'll play it on the weekend, and they rerun it all during the course of the week. So it's Hot Topics with Judge Joe Brown. We have one Puerto Rican woman who's with Fox Mundo. She just got an Emmy. She's blonde, but she's from Puerto Rico. We've got one Mexican girl, a lady. She's the youngest. She's smart for her age, but she's still in her 20s. We've got a woman from Costa Rica who's heavyweight. She's cutie pie. And we've got a very heavy, super fine black doctor who is a PhD, a clinical psychologist, and she's wise way beyond what you would expect.
Okay. So
I'm sort of the rooster in the hen house.
So like eye candy and mind candy.
Yeah, so I guess it's the view with a rooster in it to make it control, and the women are a lot heavier than most of the airheads that are on the view.
Well, we're looking forward to that addition to the TV rotation, Judge. And like I said, the words of Great Skeleton, we love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing. Thank you so much.
Hey, man, thanks, young brother. Keep it up. I appreciate
you. Appreciate you. Peace.